That look lingered in the air between us, thick as the humidity, turning the familiar creak of the floorboards into something charged, electric. I should have laughed it off, cracked a joke about the beer we'd cracked open earlier, but my heart slammed against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Jack had been a fixture in my life since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. Dad's war buddy from Nam, the guy who'd shown up at our door in Austin with a duffel bag and a grin after the divorce, teaching me how to throw a curveball and fix a carburetor while Mom chain-smoked her regrets in the kitchen. He was family, the kind that didn't need blood to bind it, broad-shouldered and weathered like the Appalachians themselves, with laugh lines etched deep from years of bullshitting around campfires. But now, at 24, fresh out of UT Austin with a psych degree gathering dust and a string of bad hookups in my rearview, that gaze pinned me like a butterfly to corkboard. "What the hell, Jack?" I finally managed, my voice steadier than my pulse. He didn't answer, just set his beer down on the scarred oak table, the bottle sweating like we both were, and stood up slow, like he was afraid the floor might give way. The cabin was Dad's escape pod, tucked off a gravel road in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. A ramshackle A-frame he'd bought cheap after retiring from the force, walls papered with faded photos of us three. Me as a gap-toothed kid in Little League, Dad in his crisp LAPD blues, Jack in fatigues, arms slung around both of us like we were his own. We'd come here every summer until Dad's heart gave out 2 years back, leaving me to sort the estate and Jack to hover like a shadow. "Just making sure you don't burn the place down, kid." This trip was supposed to be closure, me clearing out the junk, Jack tagging along for the muscle and the memories. But as he crossed the room, flannel shirt unbuttoned just enough to show the silver chain with Dad's dog tags he never took off, I felt the air shift, the storm outside paling against the one brewing in my gut. He stopped inches away, close enough I could smell the pine soap on his skin, the faint tang of whiskey on his breath. "I shouldn't," he murmured, but his hand lifted anyway, rough fingers brushing a droplet from my collarbone, lingering like it burned him to pull away. I swallowed hard, the towel suddenly feeling like the flimsiest shield in the world. Jack was straight as an arrow, or so I'd thought, growing up on his stories of barroom brawls and the waitress in Nashville who'd broken his heart. But there was no mistaking that touch, the way his thumb traced the line of my shoulder, calluses scraping soft like sandpaper on silk. My body betrayed me first, a shiver racing down my spine that had nothing to do with the chill seeping through the cracks. "Jack, what are you doing?" The words came out breathy, accusatory, but laced with something darker, a curiosity I'd buried under layers of denial since college, when I'd first kissed a guy in the dim haze of a frat party and spent the next semester pretending it was a phase. He met my eyes, unflinching, the lines around his crinkling with a pain that mirrored my own. "Seeing you, Chris, really seeing you, for the first time." The dam broke then, or maybe it was the rain easing to a patter, but he closed the gap, his mouth crashing into mine like a wave against the shore, rough, urgent, tasting of salt and regret and a hunger that had simmered unspoken for years. I kissed back, hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer because God, it felt right in all the wrong ways, his stubble rasping against my jaw, his groan vibrating through me like bass from a jukebox. We stumbled back against the kitchen counter, the edge biting into my hip, but I didn't care. The world narrowed to the heat of his palms sliding under the towel, mapping skin I'd hidden from mirrors too long. It was messy, desperate, teeth clashing, breaths mingling in gasps, until reality clawed its way in with the ring of my phone on the charger. Mom's name flashed on the screen, oblivious to the storm we'd unleashed. Jack pulled back first, chest heaving, eyes wild. "Fuck," he whispered, forehead pressed to mine. We can't." But even as he said it, his fingers tightened on my waist, like letting go would unravel him. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that echoed off the rafters. "Can't what? Pretend this didn't just happen." The towel slipped then, pooling at my feet, and for a heartbeat, we both froze, me exposed, him staring like I'd handed him the moon on a platter. He cursed under his breath, yanking his gaze up, but the damage was done. The air hummed with possibility, with the weight of what we'd crossed into. That night, we didn't talk about it. We crashed on the lumpy couch by the fireplace, beers in hand, the silence louder than any confession. But as the embers died, his hand found mine in the dark, thumb stroking my knuckles, and I knew sleep wouldn't come easy. Not with the ghost of Dad's laughter in the walls, or the echo of that kiss branding my lips. Not with the realization dawning slow and sure. Jack wasn't just looking at me differently. He was seeing the man I'd become, the one Dad's shadow had kept hidden, and in that gaze, I saw my own reflection. Flawed, fierce, finally free. Morning broke gray and drizzly, the mountains shrouded in mist like a bad hangover. I woke to the sizzle of bacon, Jack at the stove in his threadbare jeans and a Henley that hugged his frame just right, whistling some old Springsteen tune off-key. He looked up as I padded in, socks silent on the linoleum, and for a second, that hunger flickered back, raw, unguarded, before he schooled it into a grin. "Sleep okay, kid? Figured you'd need fuel after last night." The casualness stung, like he'd filed away the kiss under mountain air fever. But I caught the tremor in his voice, the way his spatula scraped the pan too hard. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed to hide the goosebumps that had nothing to do with the chill. "Yeah, about that." But he cut me off with a plate thrust my way. Eggs sunny side up, just how Dad used to make 'em. "Eat first, talk later. World's not ending yet." We ate in the nook overlooking the deck, where the creek rushed swollen from the rain, steam rising off our coffee mugs like unspoken words. Jack filled the silence with stories. Light ones, about the time Dad and he hot-wired a Jeep in Da Nang, or the poker game in Vegas where they cleaned out a mobster's nephew. I nodded along, fork pushing food around, but my mind replayed the press of his body, the way he tasted like home and heartbreak. He was 52, silver threading his temples, body still solid from years on construction sites after the service. But there was a weariness in his shoulders now, a crack in the armor I'd never noticed. "You ever think about settling down?" I asked, the question slipping out before I could reel it back. He paused, mug halfway to his lips, eyes on the window where a cardinal flashed red against the gloom. "Tried once, after your old man shipped back stateside. Met a girl in Knoxville, sweet thing, taught kindergarten. Lasted 2 years. Guess I was too much like him. Restless. Him. That. The elephant in every room since the funeral, where Jack had stood ramrod straight in his dress blues, eulogy choked with gravel. I'd always wondered about their bond. The letters Dad burned instead of reading, the late-night calls that left him hollow-eyed. But now, with Jack's gaze sliding back to me, soft and searching, I wondered if there'd been more. "You miss him," I said, not a question. He nodded, slow, setting the mug down with a clink. "Every damn day. He was everything. Kept me straight when the jungle tried to bend us crooked." The words hung there, layered with meaning I wasn't sure I wanted to unpack. Straight, crooked. My pulse kicked up, memories of my own detours. The ex-boyfriend in Austin who'd ghosted after coming out went south. The grinder flings that left me emptier than before. "And me," I pressed, voice barely above the rain. "What am I to you, Jack? Godson? Or?" He stood abruptly, chair scraping, and paced to the sink, back to me like a wall. "Your trouble, Chris. The best kind. The kind that makes a man question every line he's drawn in the sand." When he turned, his face was a map of conflict. Jaw tight, eyes stormy. "Last night, that was me being selfish. You're young, got the world ahead. I'm just an old dog chasing ghosts." Bullshit, I wanted to say, but instead, I rose, closing the distance, my hand on his arm feeling the corded muscle tense under flannel. Ghosts? Or something real? Our eyes locked, and in that beat, the cabin faded. The rain, the mountains, Dad's photos watching from the walls. He cupped my face, thumb tracing my lower lip, and whispered, "Real as it gets," before kissing me again, slower this time, like he was memorizing the shape of me. We didn't make it back to the couch. The bedroom was Dad's domain, flannel sheets still smelling faintly of his aftershave. But we tumbled onto it anyway, hands fumbling with buttons and zippers, breaths ragged in the quiet. Jack was gentle at first, reverent almost, lips trailing fire down my neck, my chest, murmuring my name like a prayer. "So beautiful," he said, voice wrecked, as he took me in, and I arched into it, the praise unraveling me faster than any touch. It wasn't just sex. It was confession, absolution. His body over mine, solid and sure, moving with a rhythm that spoke of years denied. I clung to him, nails digging into his back, whispering things I hadn't said aloud. "Don't stop, please." And he didn't. Not until we shattered together, the world remade in sweat-slicked skin and shared gasps. After, we lay tangled, his head on my chest, fingers tracing lazy patterns on my stomach. The rain had stopped, birdsong filtering through the pines, but the peace felt fragile, like glass underfoot. "This changes everything," I said, staring at the ceiling beams Dad had planed himself. Jack sighed, warm breath ghosting my skin. "Yeah, or nothing at all. Depends on what we do next." We talked then, really talked, for hours, voices low as lovers' secrets. About his hidden hookups in dive bars after Dad died, the guilt that choked him every time. About my fears of being the family fuck-up, the queer kid Dad never knew. "He knew," Jack said softly, propping on an elbow to meet my eyes. "Last letter he wrote me, he said to look out for you. Said you had his fire, but a softer heart. Think he suspected." The thought twisted something in me, grief and gratitude knotting tight. We spent the day like that, lazy, intimate, hiking the trail behind the cabin, hands brushing as we pointed out deer tracks in the mud. Jack shared more stories, the unvarnished ones. How Dad had pulled him from an ambush in '68, how they'd sworn brotherhood under fire, but the nights in the hooches had forged something deeper, unspoken. "We never crossed that line," he admitted, skipping a stone across the creek. "Too scared of losing what we had. But losing him, it broke me open." I squeezed his hand, the gesture small but seismic. "Then don't lose this." He pulled me close, kissing my temple, and for the first time in years, I felt anchored, not to Dad's memory, but to something alive, pulsing. But the mountains have a way of whispering truths you don't want to hear. That evening, as we grilled burgers on the deck, my phone buzzed again. Not Mom, but an email from the estate lawyer in Knoxville. Subject: Final documents for review. I opened it absently, Jack flipping patties beside me until the words blurred. Bequest to Christopher Hayes. Full ownership of Gatlinburg property. Contingent upon discussion with co-beneficiary, John Jack Harlan. Co-beneficiary. My stomach dropped, fork clattering to the plate. Jack froze, spatula midair, face paling under the string lights. "Chris, wait." But I was already scrolling, the attachment unfolding like a gut punch. Dad's will, notarized a month before he died, leaving the cabin split between us. Not just property, guardianship clauses from when I was a teen, Jack named as backup if shit hit the fan. And there, in the margins, Dad's scrawled note. "Jack's been more than a friend. Take care of each other." The burger tasted like ash. "You knew?" I said, voice flat, rising from the table as the sun dipped behind the ridges, painting the sky blood red. "All this time you knew about the will. And you, what, came here to stake your claim? On the cabin? Or me?" He stood 2 hands out like calming a spooked horse. "No, God, no. I came because he asked me to help you through this. The rest, that was us, Chris. Real as the dirt under our feet." But doubt crept in, cold and insidious, twisting the afternoon's warmth into something tainted. Had it been pity? A dying man's plea to keep his boy from falling apart? Or worse? Jack filling a void, seeing Dad in my eyes, my build, the way I laughed? "Bullshit," I spat, storming inside, the screen door slamming like a gunshot. He followed, voice rising in the hallway. "You think I'd use you like that? After everything?" The fight spilled out then, raw and ragged, me hurling accusations born of fear, him defending with the desperation of a man watching his world crack. "I loved him, Chris, as a brother, a partner in the shit show of life. But you're not him. You're you. And that's why this scares the hell out of me." I whirled, tears hot on my cheeks. "Then why the secrets? Why not tell me about the will from day one?" He deflated, leaning against the wall, looking every one of his years. "Because I didn't want you thinking that's why I stayed. Why I fell for you. Fell for you." The words hung, a lifeline or a lie. I couldn't tell through the roar in my ears. I grabbed my keys, bolting for the truck, the gravel crunching under tires as I peeled out into the dusk, leaving him silhouetted in the doorway, a lone figure against the gathering dark. The drive to Knoxville was a blur. Winding roads slick with twilight, radio static drowning my thoughts. I checked into a cheap motel off I-40, the kind with neon signs buzzing vacancy, like a bad omen, and paced the threadbare carpet until dawn. Phone silent except for Mom's worried texts. Betrayal gnawed at me, not just the will, But the what-ifs. Was Jack's touch tainted by obligation? Had Dad orchestrated this from beyond the grave, puppeteering us into some twisted family legacy? By morning, exhaustion won, and I crashed, dreams fractured with images of Jack's hands, Dad's grave, my own reflection mocking me in the creek. 2 days passed in radio silence, me holed up sorting Dad's papers at the lawyer's office. Bank statements yellowed with age, photos tucked in envelopes. Jack and Dad, young and grinning in fatigues. Me as a toddler on Jack's shoulders, his arms steady as oaks. Each one chipped at the anger, revealing the threads that bound us, fragile but enduring. On the third, as thunder rumbled distant over the hills, my phone lit up. Jack. Not a call. A voice memo, his voice gravel rough, like he'd smoked a pack waiting to hit send. Chris, I ain't good at this. Words were never my strong suit. Your dad handled the pretty speeches. But I get it now why you're running. Feels like betrayal, like every good thing's got strings. Truth is, the will. It was his way of saying we were family. Always were. But this? Us. That's mine. I look at you and see a future, not a ghost. If you need space, take it. But I'm here, at the cabin, waiting. I played it on loop, parked on the motel's lot. Rain sheeting the windshield like tears I couldn't shed. The lawyer had cleared the paperwork that morning. Cabin jointly ours. No contingencies beyond mutual respect. Dad's humanism shining through, even in death. No cages, just choices. By noon, I was barreling back west, heart pounding with a mix of dread and defiance. The Smokies unfolding like an old friend. The cabin loomed as dusk fell, lights warm in the windows, Jack's truck mud-splattered beside mine. He was on the porch, nursing a beer, face shadowed but eyes lighting when he saw me. No words at first, just me climbing the steps, him setting the bottle down, pulling me into an embrace that smelled of sawdust and home. I'm sorry, I mumbled into his shoulder. For doubting, for running. He held tighter, chin on my head. No sorries, just us. We talked through the night, fire crackling, truth spilling like the creek after rain. Jack confessed the letters, Dad's hints at the end, urging him to step up for me not as guardian, but as kin. He knew about me, Jack said, voice thick. About the nights I couldn't sleep, wondering what it'd be like to hold a man without the world burning us for it. Told me to live, Chris. For both of us. I shared my own scars. The Austin breakup that left me questioning every touch. The closet I'd half-inched out of, terrified of losing the straight-laced legacy Dad built. You're not him, Jack repeated, hand warm on my knee. You're better, braver. The kiss that followed was a seal, soft and sure, leading us back to bed. Not desperate this time, but deliberate, bodies learning each other in the fireglow. Weeks blurred into a rhythm. Mornings chopping wood, Jack's laugh booming as I botched the axe swing. Afternoons tangled in sheets, exploring vulnerabilities with whispers and touches. Evenings on the deck, planning, me eyeing grad school in Nashville for counseling. Him talking expansion on his carpentry gig. Maybe a life here, roots digging deep. But conflict simmered, as it does in stories worth telling. Knoxville brought it home. A bar run for supplies, Jack's hand brushing mine under the table, only for his old crew to roll in. Roughnecks from the sights, beers sloshing, jokes turning sharp when they clocked our vibe. Harlan gone soft? One sneered, the ringleader. A burly ex-Marine named Tate with a grudge from some long-ago slight. Jack stiffened, but I felt the shift, the old armor slamming down. It escalated fast, words flying like sparks, Tate's crew circling like wolves scenting blood. Heard you two playing house up in the holler. Tate slurred, eyes on me like I was the punchline. That true, Jack? Trading pussy for pretty boy. The bar hushed, jukebox crooning Patsy Cline like a dirge. Jack's fist clenched, knuckles white, but I stood first, pulse thundering. Yeah, it's true. Problem. The room spun, adrenaline sharp as broken glass. But Jack's hand on my arm steadied me. Protective, proud. Tate laughed, ugly and loud, but backed off when Jack's glare promised hell. We left to catcalls, the night air cool on flushed skin, and in the truck, Jack pulled over, kissing me fierce against the dash. You're fire, Chris. Don't let 'em dim you. But the seed was planted, society's snarl, the whispers that followed us back to Gatlinburg, neighbors side-eyeing at the Piggly Wiggly, old friends fading like smoke. The real storm hit a month in, betrayal's blade twisting deep. I'd driven to Austin for Mom's birthday, leaving Jack to handle a big Reno job in town. Phone silence stretched, texts unread, calls to voicemail, until a mutual buddy, Eddie from Dad's precinct days, rang late, voice slurry with scotch and shock. "Chris, you sitting down?" "Jack, he's in the ER. Knoxville General. Tate's crew jumped him after hours. Beat the shit out of him for, well, you know." My world tilted, tires screeching as I floored it east. 8 hours compressing into a nightmare of what-ifs. The hospital reeked of bleach and despair. Fluorescent buzz mocking the man in the bed. Jack, bruised and bandaged, split lip and black eye blooming purple, but alive, eyes cracking open when I burst in. "Hey, kid," he croaked, attempting a grin that split the stitches. "Told you I was clumsy." Rage boiled, but tears came first, splashing his hand as I gripped it. "Why didn't you call? Fight back," he sighed, wincing. "Didn't want you dragged into it. This town's got long memories, Chris. Nom vets like me, we carry flags they expect us to wave. Loving you? That's treason in their book." The confession cracked me open. His sacrifice, the closet he'd cracked for me, now costing blood. Tate's crew had cornered him in the lot. Taunts about faggot friends, escalating to fists. Jack taking 3-on-1 because running meant leaving his tools, his pride. "I thought of you," he whispered, kept me swinging. I stayed through the night, dozing in the vinyl chair, vowing silently, no more hiding. Recovery was a grind. Jack hobbling around the cabin on crutches, me playing nurse with a side of snark, but the attack lingered like smoke, tainting our idyll. Whispers turned to threats. Slashed tires on Jack's truck, anonymous notes in the mailbox. "Go back to the city," deviants. The betrayal cut deepest from Eddie, who confessed over coffee he'd spilled our situation to Tate after too many whiskeys. Just joking around. Old loyalties fracturing, the humanistic core of our bond tested. Forgive or fortify. Jack wanted to let it slide. Water under the bridge, like your dad always said. But I pushed back, filing reports, rallying a queer support group from Nashville for solidarity. "We're not ghosts to be haunted," I told him one night, curled on the couch. "We're here, alive." Climax crested at the county fair, Gatlinburg's annual hoedown, bluegrass twanging under harvest moons, funnel cakes sweetening the air. Jack, mostly mended, arms slung around my waist as we wandered the midway, felt like defiance, a middle finger to the stairs. But Tate loomed by the Ferris wheel, flanked by his pack, beer gut straining his flannel, eyes narrowing as we passed. Harlan, arm around the boy like a dam purse. Pathetic. The crowd thinned, tension coiling like a snake. Jack tensed, but I stepped forward, voice steady despite the quake in my knees. "Walk away, Tate. This ain't your war." He lunged, breath sour, fist cocked. But Jack was faster, shoving me back, taking the swing on the jaw that reopened old wounds. Chaos erupted. Shouts, scuffles, me diving in to pull Tate off, knuckles splitting on his teeth as fairgoers gawked. Cops hauled them away, Tate and crew, faces twisted in cuffs, while Jack bled on the hay-strewn ground, me cradling his head, whispering, "I got you." The ride home was quiet, ambulance lights fading in the rearview, his hand in mine a lifeline. At the cabin, cleaned up and bandaged anew, we faced the wreckage. Bruises blooming, but something stronger forged in the fire. "No more running," Jack said, pulling me close, lips soft on my temple. "From them, from us." I nodded, tears salting the kiss that followed, deep, anchoring, a vow etched in scars. Months unfurled like pages in a well-worn novel, humanistic threads weaving redemption. We sold the cabin, not out of fear but to build anew. A modest fixer-upper in Nashville's east side, close to my grad classes, Jack's jobs. Mom visited, eyes widening at our joined hands, but hugging us both with a fierceness that echoed Dad's unspoken grace. Eddie apologized in a letter, raw with regret. We met for coffee, bridges mended tentative but true. Tate got community service, his crew scattering like leaves, the town's slow thaw reminding us. Change comes in drips, not floods. On our first anniversary, marked not by dates, but by that rainy night 2 years prior, we hiked the Smokies again, the cabin sold but memories intact. At the creek's bend, Jack dropped to one knee, not with a ring, but Dad's dog tags, rest rung on leather. Marry me, Chris? Not legal yet, but in every way that counts. Laughter bubbled through tears, my yes a whisper on the wind. We stood there as dusk fell, arms entwined, the mountains bearing witness to a love born of loss, tempered by betrayal, blooming defiant and deep. In America's heartland, where shadows linger long, we'd carved our light, human, flawed, forever.